All right, welcome back to the Shatkin First Down Buffalo Pre-Game show. Rich Gaenzler, and this is kind of a weird setup. Everything's on Zoom this week because of the travel advisories and bans around Western New York after the blizzard of the century. We're joined by Jeff Nixon, who played safety for the Bills in the late 70s and early to mid 80s. And he was kind enough to join us last year on the show and is again this year. How'd you make it through the holiday, Jeff, with the weather and everything going on?
You know, I made a wise decision a couple of years ago to get myself a generator. A couple of years ago, we had a pretty bad snowstorm and it knocked the power out for 5 days. And so the lucky thing is I have 5 fireplaces in my house that are run on gas. So I would just crank those up in any room that I was in. But I made the decision to get a generator that automatically kicks in when the power goes out. So for the past 3 days, I was able to have heat and electricity, and so we had a good Christmas. I know it was tough for a lot of people out there, and I feel for them, the ones that got trapped in the snow and got trapped in buildings, and people that died. A lot of people passed away. We're just thankful that we're safe and we're ready to ready for the new year.
That's right. That's right. Are you a resolution guy?
Yeah, I've set resolutions in the past. I rarely, commit to them. No,
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, I know. But I've the past couple of years, I made a commitment to lose a little bit of weight. I was weighing about 225, almost 230 at one point. Now I'm down to 180. So I've lost 45 pounds in the 2-year period, but I feel so good now.
Yeah.
I'm at my playing weight, actually.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I played at 180, and it's so I figured it's a good thing. So, yeah.
So we set you up. We were going to set you up for last week when the Bills played the Bears, because you played in, and I try and research as much as I possibly can when we do this show, especially with our guests. And so I looked it up. You played in a game against the Bears in '79 at Old Rich Stadium. The name is old, whatever. And the offense in that game generated 106 total yards. I'm sorry, when an NFL offense generates 106 total yards, that puts a heck of a lot of pressure on the defense if they're going to win a football game. And when you're playing against Walter Payton, which you guys were, makes it even more difficult. Talk a little bit about the memories of that game, and more importantly, talk about playing against Sweetness.
Oh boy, that it's an honor anytime you get a chance to play against a guy that is going to be a future Hall of Famer. And at that point in his career, it was kind of winding down, but he still had a lot left in the tank. And on that game, as I think we spoke about this earlier, he gained like 150 some yards. I mean, that he was rolling. But in one play in the game, I remember he came running down the field. It was on a draw. And it opened up, and he was just flying right into the secondary. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And to give me what he calls the limp leg, where he sticks his leg out like he's going to go that way. But I'd seen him do this before, so I didn't fall for that. And then he cut back hard to the right, just bowled me over, but I was able to tackle him. But what a great feeling that was, to be able to tackle a guy. I could always say, hey, I tackled Walter Payton, they were a pretty good team. A few years later after that, they won the Super Bowl, but they always had great defenses back then. Just really a tough team to play. They knew how to play in cold weather, and it was a pretty cold game, but it wasn't snowing or anything like the Bills games and some of the other ones we've seen in the NFL recently.
Yeah, really good segue, actually. Cold weather games for you guys back then. You didn't have, at least I don't think you did, the heated benches, the jet heaters on the sidelines. You guys had aluminum benches and parkas back then, right?
Right. Yeah, we had no hand warmers, none of those big units that blow hot air out of them. I would love to have those back then. Yeah, you just it was tough to play, back in those days, but maybe it toughened us up. Maybe we were, and no one wanted to come play in Buffalo, and so we had a little bit of an advantage, I think, on that, in that respect. So,
well, you also didn't have a big, giant, beautiful field house, right? I mean, you practiced outdoors all the time.
Yeah. Well, in the I think in 82 or 83, somewhere around there, they finally built this bubble.
That's right.
I
That's
don't
right.
remember that. I remember, that was really nice. Oh, we finally got a place where we could come inside. And then one day the wind blew so hard it ripped it and tore it up, and it went right into the woods behind, this where the stadium. I remember coming to the stadium that day, seeing it, and just being like, "Oh my God, we got to be outside again." Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. You guys, man, it was a different day. It was definitely a different, like, you mentioned playing against Peyton, and you played against so many great players and with so many great players in your day in that, 79 to mid 80s era. And, you look at the players now, and, after the game, everybody knows everybody, everybody's laughing and joshing and exchanging jerseys and stuff. Was it similar to that when you played in terms of like the fraternity of the league where everybody knew everybody like they do now, or was it not like that at all?
Well, I can't say it wasn't. It wasn't not like that at all, because there after games, typically guys would go and they'd talk to some of the other players. We talked to people that we knew that we got drafted with, and so that was happening. But I don't recall any jersey exchanges, or it just seems like there's a little bit more camaraderie now than there was back in our day. And I think that was a product of coaching. Coaches wanted us to hate the other team. I mean, they would put up billboards. Not to say that they don't try to build that motivation today, but it's harder. These guys are getting paid a lot of money. It's all about pride, and so these guys, they just after most games, I can't say that about one of the recent games we played. There was a fight after the game, and two of the guys got suspended. That's the first time I'd ever heard of that, where two guys fought after a game. Things get pretty hot and heated out on the field, but typically after the game's over, you let it go and leave it on the field. But yeah, they seem, and I think maybe it's a product of the fact that the union has gotten stronger over the years, and so players are more united with each other on the things that they're trying to do and what they're trying to. But yeah, everything is so much more commercialized now. So yeah, I wouldn't have minded getting a jersey from the other team, which I could today sell for a good buck. But no, most of those are mementos that you're never going to part with. But yeah, it just seems like they're a little bit, and I like that. I like the fact that you see that more. I will say this: there was, during my period of time, a lot of game after the game where guys would come together, circle in the middle of the field, and do prayer. I never joined that. I think after I beat somebody up or they beat me up, I don't want to sit down and pray with them. you know, but no, I think that I saw that happen quite a bit. What are the Fellowship of Christian Athletes? It was typically the ones that would form that after a game.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring all of that up, because I want to know what, and I don't know how much of a collector you were of all the things, from back then, but is there one thing that you still have from your playing days that is maybe like your most, prized possession, whether it's, I don't even know if they did game balls back then, like a game ball, a jersey, a helmet, something from another player. Is there one thing that is really sort of from your playing days, the prized possession?
Oh yeah, this story is going to take a little time to tell. So after I retired, I was going around the stadium this is probably 5-10 years after I had retired, and I'm going around the concourse at a current Bills game, and I see somebody wearing number 38. And I thought it was maybe a Mark Kelso jersey or something. No, it was Jeff Nixon jersey. And not only that, it was a mesh jersey. And I said, that's my jersey. So I went up to the guy, and he was surrounded by a bunch of buddies of his, about 10 other guys. And I said, "Where'd you get that jersey?" And he said, I worked for the laundry crew or whatever at the stadium, and I took it back in the. His friend said, "Do you know who you're talking to? That's Jeff Nixon. You got his jersey on." And I was like, and he was like, "Oh," he was a little bit embarrassed about it. But it's just so funny. And I told the guy, I said, "Look, just wear it with honor. That's all I ask. Don't do anything stupid with the Jeff Nixon jersey. And so
that's a lot to ask, by the way.
What's that?
That's a lot to ask out of a Bills fan.
What's it like to ask out of a Bills?
No, I said that's a lot to ask of a Bills fan to behave and.
Oh yeah. Oh right. Yeah. So anyway, I'm at the stadium the very next season, and I'm at a game. I'm walking around the concourse and hanging out, and here comes the same guy, and he's headed right toward me, and he's got his group with him again. And as he's coming to me, he goes, "Jeff, I want to apologize. I know this means a lot to you. This was the jersey. This was a jersey that I wore when we beat Miami for the first time in 10 years. And I had 3 interceptions and a fumble recovery, 4 takeaways, which I think is still a record for the Bills. And he just took it off and gave it to me. And I was really thankful. I wish I'd have gotten the guy's name. I can't remember what his name was. I'm sure he told me at the time, but I just, maybe he'll see this interview and he'll send me something.
Right on.
And I'll give him an autograph and any other memorabilia that I have. I'll do that, because it was that was my biggest memento. Now I got a game ball afterwards. That I cherish that. As far as other stuff, I didn't really, when I left the Bills, I knew they were going to cut me, because I'd had 2, one major surgery and 4 minor surgeries, but the major surgery I could never really get my knee back. And so, I didn't bother when they told me I was released to go to my locker and get my football and my helmet and I said, I'm out of here. And I was kind of relieved that I'd been released, because my knee was really in bad shape. It was, I had no business actually being on a football. But so a lot of times your mind takes over, and it thinks a lot more than what the body can actually do.
For sure. Before I want to, so obviously we're playing the Bengals, and there's a big Bengal game for you in particular, a playoff game that I want to talk to you about. But before we do, I want to ask you about a player in that division that recently passed, Franco Harris. Talk a little bit about, and you played against him many, many times. Talk a little bit about what you remember about Franco Harris.
Obviously I knew that he was a good football player. We played him my rookie season. It was the last game of the year that they won the Super Bowl. They were a very dominating defense, good offense. Lynn Swann was, and Terry Bradshaw and Jack Ham and Jack Lambert. And it goes on and on and on. They were great at everything. So we're playing them there. And one thing I remember about that game is we had designed a play where me and the other safety would play we would swap roles. So if Franco came around to my side, I would immediately come out and Steve Freeman would take the free safety position. If he went the other way, Steve would come up and I would take the safety, the free safety, the deep middle. And so on the very first play of the game, they ran what they call this little it was like a little, they make it look like the play is going to run right up the middle, but then Franco breaks it to the right, my right, or defensive right. And I came up and popped him right at the very first play of the game, bam. And I stopped him for no gain. Well, that was the last time that happened. The box score at the end of the game was 7-0, 7-0, 7-0, 7-0. So 28-0. They were like a juggernaut going down the field. Playing again. One thing that I always pride myself in on this one is I intercepted Terry Bradshaw in the game. So I can, and I had intercepted Bob Greasy. Both those two are Hall of Famers. And I'm trying to think, did I have any other picks on? I didn't get Dan Fouts. That's my only. I wanted to get Dan, but never did get Dan Fouts. But yeah, they're playing against Franco. But then I realized that once he retired, you start looking at, well, what's he doing now? And he was always involved in charitable work and doing things for other people, and I remember Andre Reed had a golf tournament down in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I always go to it, but we heard that Franco was going to come to it. that was like the highlight of the whole thing. When Franco showed up at the VIP party, he got just inundated with players, and I'm talking about other players like Kellen Winslow was there, and and other Hall of Famers were this, but he just attracted all the attention. He's such a nice guy, just soft spoken, just the good person on the field, not the field. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, big guy, tough to bring down, and obviously a terrific player when he played. And you had the privilege to tackle him for no game, which a lot of people didn't do. That's pretty impressive. Okay, so let's fast forward. I grew up. I was 81. I was 12-ish years old. That's when I first really started to learn the Bills and become a fan, right? And everybody on your team I could pretty much name still today, because it's just ingrained. Love the defensive backfield, whether it was Clark and Romes and Freeman and you obviously back there, and I know I'm missing somebody, but Villapiano,
Rod Cush, Billy Simpson. We had a lot of good players.
Yeah, Isaiah Robertson, Hazlitt, Nelson, all the Villapiano, Smurlis, Ben Williams, Sherman White. Like, sorry, I know for people that are in their 50s knew exactly what I'm talking about. Flip it over to the offensive side. All those guys knew all of them. It was like anytime, you would go to a car dealership or a car show or something, you meet Joe Ferguson or Conrad Dobler. I still have those signatures now 40 years later. But then as a kid, it's such a highlight of your life. And, for a long time, the Bills weren't very good. But those couple years, that 80 team, that 81 team were excellent. And I want to talk a little bit about, you played in, I remember the Charger game, the one playoff game, which was incredible. I mean, it's in, in San Diego on the baseball diamond. The diamond was there, it was so dirty. And you played some Jets games. That one Jet wild card game was amazing. And then we're having you on this week to talk about the Bengals, obviously. And you guys had a pretty epic battle in Cincinnati in that divisional game in 81. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to play in those 3 playoff games. The one against San Diego Chargers, that was in 1980, and Joe Ferguson was hobbled a little bit with ankle injury, so it hurt our chances in that game. But we played them. Came down really to the last play of the game. They threw a slant into I forget what the guy's name is now, John Smith. But he took it for a touchdown. Billy Simpson had gotten caught in single coverage, and he really wasn't the best one-on-one cover guy. He was more of a safety, brought that deep. And he was in for me because I was injured. But that was heartbreaking because we had that game, I thought, sewed up. The following year, we were the wild card. We went to the New York Jets. We were up like 30-0. I forget what the score was. We were hammering them pretty good, and then they started fighting back. If they'd have beat us, it would have probably been the largest comeback in the NFL at that time. But we, late in that game, they were driving. If they score a touchdown, they win. Me and Billy Simpson were the safeties, and I was covering one back out of the backfield. He was covering the other. Hugged up on my guy real tight. Billy kind of let his guy get behind him a little bit, but he knew he had the end zone as the back line of the end zone as like another defender. So when Richard Todd tried to drop it over top of him, Billy was able to jump up and intercept it and take it out, and we won the game. Then we went on to Cincinnati, and that was a good match. I think we should have won that game too. I remember distinctly, I made a couple mistakes in that game. I missed a tackle one time on somebody, and he got another like 15 yards. You always remember the bad plays. But the bad ones, they stick a little bit longer. But then I had an opportunity. They were driving. They were about the 10-yard line. And so I had the coach gave me the ability to determine whether or not I wanted to double on Chris Collinsworth or the other wideout they had. I can't remember his name now. Very good player, had been in the league for years. But I figured I'd do it with, and I left Mario Clark alone.
Was it Isaac Curtis, maybe?
Isaac Curtis.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the.
Not funny, but funny.
Yeah, I know. Right. So anyway, yeah. So I decided I was going to double on Isaac. We were going to do what we call a Connie, call in and out. And I was going to, so I had to kind of run over there. And so Mario Clark was in the slot on Chris Collinsworth, and Chris Collinsworth ran. Um, I forget what. I don't know, I forget what the name of the route is, where you just make it look like you're out, and then you come back in. Zip route, or it'll come to me. But Mario wasn't able to cover him, and he went for a touchdown. That was the difference in the game. But so you always think, I should have doubled on Chris Collinsworth. I should have done a creative in and out with him, where Mario looks like he's covering him in the slot on the outside, but yet on the snap of the ball, he takes him to the inside, and I slip out to the outside. Now, if that would have happened, who knows? Maybe we would have intercepted the ball. Maybe Mario would have got it. That kind of stuff always runs through the mind, especially in big games. Championship games, divisional games, stuff like that. But needless to say, they won that game. There was one situation where we had a chance right at the end of the game to come back and win it. It was third down. We were about 10-yard line, maybe 12-yard line. And we had a special play where Lou Capone comes across in motion to a two receiver size. We got three receivers on there. They kind of provide like cover, what do you call it? It's not a pick play, but they kind of goes and they let Lou get around him. Lou caught the ball, got knocked out at the 1-yard line. And then a flag came out, and we were like, what's the flag on? It was in the end zone. They had the guy actually there throws the flag. And I was thinking, well, they must have interfered with Lou or something like that. No, they called the delay. And we all just went crazy on the sideline. No, you if you're going to call a delay a game, you blow a whistle right before the play starts, or right as it's starting, and you stop it. You don't let the whole play go, and then all of a sudden, we thought there was something really strange with that, but that's it. Once the officials make that final ruling, it's hard to, back in those days, there wasn't a lot of replay monitoring, and we had no ability to change the call or anything, so those are some of the good innovations in the NFL, that they do have the ability to reverse bad calls.
And then, of course, the Bengals would go on to the Super Bowl and lose to the 49ers and Joe Montana, if I'm not mistaken, in the old Silverdome in Detroit that year.
Yeah.
So let's talk very quickly. Let's fast forward to the current Bills team. They're a team, in the last 6 to 8 weeks, they have a 6-game win streak, but not many of the wins were incredibly convincing, put it that way. What do you make of where they are? And you break down the AFC, it looks like it's them and the Bengals, which makes Monday night an incredibly important game, and obviously Kansas City. So what do you make of this team this year?
Yeah, you know what? They went through a rough patch there, for a while, where they just didn't seem to be in sync. They weren't stopping the run very well. They and they lost a couple, but they seem to finally get their mojo back now. When they started running the ball, and I tell you what, Cook, I'm telling you what, he is going to break one. He gets a chance, that cat can run. And I'd like to see them get a little bit more innovative with him on screen passes, on short passes that he can do. But yeah, I like this team. Obviously, Josh Allen is right up there with the best in the NFL right now. He's a run threat. Teams always have to be thinking about that. That's tough, because if they go into a man-to-man coverage, and he's got people sprinting downfield, and he can get by a linebacker, boom, he's off and on his way. And I like watching Josh run, because Josh makes some really good fake moves on guys. I don't know if people realize it, but he's pretty good when he gets in that open field, as far as making a guy miss him. Tremendous instincts on that. I just think that's all part of his visibility. He has great focus when he's back there, and he can feel pressure coming. He knows when to slide to the right, slide to the left, when to step up in the pocket. He makes really good decisions. But every once in a while, he kind of startles with an interception that you're like, a head scratcher. Why did he throw that? Why, who knows? But he makes so many better decisions than he does bad decisions that, he's great. He's up there with the elite right now. And it's good to see Singletary getting the run going. The defensive line, they're finally seem to be stopping the run pretty good when they want to. They set themselves up in defenses where sometimes they're more pass oriented, pass defense oriented, and a team will run the ball. But, we were having some issues not too long ago with tackling, just, being able to tackle that, they really have to get back to that, just make sure that they're securing the guy. Wait, if you can only get like a piece of his foot or whatever, just hold on to that till the posse gets there and knocks him down. But yeah, I'm very impressed with, and they've had a lot of injuries, but, they've always had people step up, and I tell you what, I just love the work of Milano. Man, that guy is everywhere. He is so smart. Tremaine Edmonds, he's tough too, man. They're pretty solid. I think Tre'Davious White, he's not quite 100% still. You can tell he's not really, he's a little bit worried about getting beat deep. A lot of those little out routes that he used to be able to knock out, he's letting those get completed because he doesn't want to get, but he needs to, I think he needs to try and take a little more chance. See what he can do. He's got some good guys he's going to be going up against. Chase is, just an unbelievable receiver, and they've got Joe Burrows, man. Joe Burrows, he's good. Like 28 passes in the first half of last week's game. That's amazing. 28. Wow. So, this is gonna be a game that goes right down to the wire. It's gonna be a game decided by a field goal or a last minute touchdown, and it's gonna be a nail biter. And the Bills have put us through that. But you know what? One of the statistics I saw that was really, really interesting is that they're the best in the league in the last 2 minutes of the first half and the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. That's when you need it. That's when you need it the most. So that's promising when you see that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. They're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And their losses are by, 3 to 5 points generally, which is, again, really impressive. So, you went from blowout victories to losses by five points. I mean, they're a pretty impressive team that I think people, and I think to their credit and almost to their advantage, people might not be, at least the fans, taking them as serious. I mean, obviously it's more important that the players take them seriously, and they do, because they're dangerous regardless. But I feel like the fans and some of the analysts out there, the talking heads, are maybe like downplaying the Bills a little bit. And I think that's a good thing for them. I think underdog roles are always helpful. You talked about motivation earlier. That's just more of it for the Bills. And but you get them more motivated than they are, then they're really troubling. Let's move on. We have to do a trivia question, okay, for you. Yep. Bills Bengals based. Actually, it's more Bengals based, but very simple, multiple choice. You take a guess, and at the beginning of the next segment, we'll give out the answer. Very simple. Who has the most all-time passing touchdowns for the Bengals? Is it A, Ken Anderson, B, Andy Dalton, or C, Boomer Esiason?
I'd say Ken Anderson.
You're going Ken Anderson.
I don't know why, but yeah.
Well, you played against him, right?
Yeah.
And he threw touchdown passes against you. So, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But I could be way up there. He could be last on the list for all I know.
Well, it's all good. And he was a good player, and you were a heck of a player as well. And I thank you for your time, Jeff, for doing this. It's been a lot of fun. And hopefully we can do it again soon. And certainly, if not, by the end of this year, next year, we want to have you back on the show again.
Thanks again for having me on, man. I appreciate it. And as always, go Bills.
Yeah, for sure.